What's up, YouTube? It's me, Morgan, coming at you with another great DM tip for you to help give your players the best experience at the table. So recently, I went to this amazing event called the RPG Escape 2020. It is held here locally at a store called the Adventure Game Store. These guys are also the publishers of Esper Genesis. They're freaking awesome. If you haven't played the game, check it out. Very cool stuff. It's basically D&D 5th edition in space. This event was filled with some incredibly talented people who have had a lot of success in the industry. The guests that were invited came down, sat on a panel, and answered some really good questions presented to them by local DMs and players. And then afterwards, they broke off into these smaller groups to do some scenarios with the DMs to come up with NPCs and storylines, different stuff that they came up with. And it was a lot of fun. But one thing that a fellow DM talked about that really stuck out in my mind was the idea that in Dungeons & Dragons, he felt that failure is failure, success is success. He stated that he left Dungeons & Dragons after 4th edition and went over to another game system called Dungeon World, which, by the way, is an awesome system, and you should check that one out as well. He found that after being playing Dungeon World for so long that he was struggling with going back into 5th edition. And the thing that he struggled with most was failing forward. He didn't feel that in D&D you could fail forward, which was a major component for Dungeon Worlds. It made me realize that a lot of people struggle with the idea of using that kind of concept in Dungeons & Dragons. And this is what I want to discuss with you guys today, failing forward inside of Dungeons & Dragons. In Dungeons & Dragons, we've become very accustomed to succeeding or failing when we roll our dice. For example, if you roll a perception check and you roll really low, your Dungeon Master might tell you something along the lines like, "You don't see anything at this time," or "Nothing of note stands out in front of you." Same thing can go for any other check. For example, if you're trying to pick a lock, maybe when you roll to try to break into the mansion of the merchant and you fail it and it goes, "Nope, the lock doesn't open." And now you're stuck trying to figure out another way into this house. This can create great opportunities, but it can also become a roadblock sometimes. But what if we needed to get those people into the house? How could we have them fail, but still move through the doors if we wanted them to still succeed in some way? While the concept of success or failure in D&D is something I'm completely fine with, I feel that it's okay to occasionally move the story along even if there is a failed roll. And nowhere does it say a failure has to be just straight failure. It just means you didn't succeed at what you wanted to do. I also think as a Dungeon Master, it is our right to take creative freedoms when we so choose, especially if you're coming across a crucial moment in the story and you don't want your players to become roadblocked by failure. Let's look at a failed perception roll again. For example, if my players roll low, normally I would say, "You don't see anything," right? Well, what if it's a crucial moment? Well, maybe they've been looking for this necromancer for a week in the city and they've had no clues. And I had them roll that perception roll, hoping to throw them a bone, and my player fails the perception roll. Instead of just saying, "You don't see anything," I might change it up and go, "Just for a moment, you think you catch the necromancer moving through the streets. But as you go to focus and look closer at the individual, the crowd gathers around him and you lose sight of him." Now my players know that they were supposed to see somebody and they have a general idea of where to go. But now they're going to have to work even harder to figure out where the necromancer is. But at least I give them a bone to let them know the necromancer is still there. Let's look at trying to pick a lock. Like I said earlier, what if our players are trying to break into an important mansion? It's part of the main story quest. And I'm like, okay, let's see if you can get in there. And my rogue rolls a natural one. Ugh, the worst roll you can get. Sure, I could say, "You fail, and your lock picks are bent." But I could also say, as you're opening a lock, somehow you jam your tool in there and it pops open. And for the moment you smile, you're happy at the success. As you go to pull your tool out, you realize that it's bent and it's stuck permanently in this lock. You're not going to be able to have time to get this thing out. Not only that, but your tools are ruined. But you do have entrance into the house. Hopefully no guards walk by and see the broken lock that you leave behind. Doing something like this lets my players know now, okay, sure, we're in the house, but we don't have our lock picking tools anymore. And if any guards come by, we might get caught, so we need to move quick. It adds these complications to what's going on in front of them, but it keeps the story moving forward. And now they have entrance into the house. And these kind of failures help keep the situation moving, especially if your players are stuck. And it's a great opportunity to create more drama as the players move forward. And you never know what this might lead into in their thinking, which will then inspire you in your thinking. And the next thing you know, your story evolves even more. Much like we see in Dungeon World and other systems that have a similar fail-forward style. Now, I'm not saying that every single time your player rolls, it needs to be a fail-forward kind of roll. No, that can be just as boring as just success and failure kind of rolls. Sometimes a failure is okay just to be a failure. But I think if you can find a really good mix of using just straight successes or failures and failing forward kind of moves, you can really create a dynamic adventure that your players never really know what's going to happen when they roll, which really can keep them guessing. And it makes them feel like they can succeed even when they're having terrible rolls. Like their moves matter. And that is the most important thing for a player, is to feel like their moves matter. There is nothing worse than rolling failure after failure after failure and feeling like your whole 3 hours of gameplay were a waste, that you were just a body causing problems for your fellow players. Doing things like this creates a new atmosphere of energy for you and the people at your table. So to quickly recap, don't ever feel like failure has to become a roadblock for your players. At the end of the day, it's your judgment call. You decide what success means and what failure means. Allowing your players to have some sort of success even when they fail can really add a new dynamic to your game. I hope this tip was helpful. Please subscribe and share your thoughts, opinions, questions, concerns, anything below. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or my website. All the links are below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great day, and may the dice always roll in your favor.